Police released a video of two dudes running up on him shooting.
October 25th, 2025. 3 p.m. Little Village, Chicago. A 35-year-old man walks into an auto parts yard, his puppy by his side, two bodyguards close behind. He's just there to buy car parts. Something simple. Something normal. But in less than 60 seconds, surveillance cameras capture two figures sprinting toward him. Guns raised. Point-blank range. And when the smoke clears, THF Bayzoo, one of Chicago's most controversial drill rappers and a loyal soldier to Lil Durk's OTF family, is bleeding out on the concrete. His puppy, dead at the scene. This isn't just another Chicago shooting. This is a story about loyalty, survival, courtrooms that couldn't convict him, and streets that finally did. Welcome to One Crime at a Time. Before we dive deeper, if you're into real stories about real people caught in impossible situations, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon so you never miss a case. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for this one. Let's rewind. Who is THF Bayzoo? His government name was Devonsha Collier. 35 years old. Father. Husband. Rapper. But more than anything, he was a survivor of one of Chicago's most violent gang ecosystems. Bayzoo wasn't just affiliated with any crew. He was deep in THF 46, which stands for Trigger Happy Family, a subset of the Black Disciples gang that ran the area around 46th and Woodlawn on Chicago's south side. And if you know anything about Chicago street politics, you know that THF didn't just make music. They made enemies. During the early 2000s, THF rose to power in their territory, but they weren't alone. The south side was a chessboard, and every block had a king. THF's main rivals? Groups like 051 Young Money, 757, STL/EBT, Jarrow City, and 069 Brick Squad. These weren't just names. These were armies. And in this world, loyalty meant everything. Betray your block, and you're done. Stand tall, and you might just make it another day. Bayzoo stood tall. For decades. But here's where it gets complicated. Bayzoo wasn't just a street guy. He was tied to something bigger. Lil Durk. You've probably heard that name. Chart-topping rapper. Millions of streams. Signed to major labels. But Durk didn't come from boardrooms and studios. He came from the same streets as Bayzoo. They were brothers. Not by blood, but by bond. Durk created OTF, Only the Family, and Bayzoo was one of his day ones. The kind of friend who'd ride or die. The kind who celebrated acquittals with music videos. Let me take you back to 2009. 4th of July weekend. Bronzeville neighborhood. A 21-year-old man named Dominic Barnes is shot and killed in the 4700 block of South Forestville Avenue. Witnesses say the shooter walked up to Barnes, asked him about his gang affiliation, and then pulled the trigger. That shooter? Prosecutors said it was Devonsha Collier. Bayzoo. He wasn't arrested until 2014, 5 years later. And where did they find him? At Lil Durk's home in Orland Park. The charges were serious. Murder. First degree. Prosecutors had witnesses. They had testimony. They had a motive tied to gang rivalry. But here's the thing about Chicago's legal system. Witnesses disappear. Testimonies change. Fear is a powerful thing. In December 2017, after years of legal battles, a Cook County jury found Bayzoo not guilty. He walked free. And what did he do? He celebrated. In 2018, Bayzoo and another rapper, King Von, someone who'd also beaten a murder charge, dropped a music video called Beat That Body. The title alone told you everything. They weren't hiding. They were flexing. They'd been through the system and came out the other side. But King Von? He didn't make it much longer. He was shot and killed in Atlanta in 2020. Just one more name on a growing list. Because here's the harsh reality. Being in Lil Durk's circle was dangerous. Bayzoo was at least the fourth close associate of Durk to be shot to death in the last 10 years. In 2015, Durk's manager, Uchenna Agina, known as Chino, was killed outside a restaurant in Avalon Park. In 2020, King Von was gunned down. In 2021, Durk's own brother, Dante Banks, was shot and killed outside a suburban nightclub. The body count kept rising. And Bayzoo? He kept moving, kept rapping, kept surviving. But survival has an expiration date in that world. Let's fast forward to October 2024. Lil Durk gets arrested. Federal charges. Murder for hire. The accusation? that Durk and several OTF associates orchestrated a hit on rival rapper Quando Rondo in 2022. The target survived, but his cousin Xavier Robinson, known as Lil Pab, was killed. The feds didn't play around. They charged Durk with conspiracy, using interstate facilities to commit murder for hire, resulting in death and firearms charges. Durk pleaded not guilty and was held at MDC Los Angeles. His trial? Postponed to January 2026. Now here's where Bayzoo comes back into the picture. In the days leading up to his death, Bayzoo went to social media to defend his friend. He posted a message calling the murder for hire charges outrageous. He wrote, "Social media, fake fans, bloggers, they all know how to give unproven titles to people. Murder for hire is outrageous. Painting a picture for the officials to run with to trick you out of your position. For the record, why would he have to pay his day one to hunt for the loss of another day one? Make it make sense." Bayzoo was loyal to the end. He stood by Durk publicly, loudly, even when the feds were watching. But loyalty in that world? It paints a target on your back. October 25th, 2025. Saturday afternoon. Bayzoo is in Little Village, a neighborhood on Chicago's southwest side. He's not in his usual territory. He's there to buy auto parts. Nothing flashy. Nothing risky. Or so it seemed. He's got 2 bodyguards with him, a 39-year-old and a 42-year-old. He's even brought his puppy along. Just a regular errand. But someone knew he was there. Someone was watching. At approximately 3 p.m., as Bayzoo and his bodyguards are at the auto parts yard in the 3100 block of South St. Louis Avenue, 2 gunmen appear. Surveillance cameras, later leaked to social media, capture everything. The footage is brutal. The 2 shooters sprint toward Bayzoo and his crew. No hesitation. No warning. They open fire from just a few feet away. Point blank. Bayzoo is hit multiple times. His bodyguards are shot too, but they survive. The puppy? Killed instantly. And just like that, in less than a minute, it's over. The shooters flee. Bayzoo is on the ground, bleeding out. He was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital, but the damage was too severe. Early Sunday morning, Devonsha Collier was pronounced dead. His death was ruled a homicide. He was 35 years old. The news hit the streets fast. Social media exploded. Drill rap blogs posted the leaked surveillance video. Fans mourned. Rivals celebrated. And the Chicago Police Department? They had no suspects. No arrests. Just another homicide in a city drowning in them. But here's where the story takes a darker twist. 2 days later, on Monday, October 27th, another shooting rocks Chicago's drill scene. This time, the victim is a 26-year-old woman named Ariana Bosnay. Her rap name? G Ari. She's sitting in her car at a stoplight when a gunman approaches and opens fire. She's shot multiple times. Her young son is in the back seat. He's not physically harmed, but imagine what he witnessed. G Ari dies at the scene. Now, who is G Ari? She wasn't just a random rapper. Her baby's father was a man known as 757 Beu, also called Baby Satan. He's currently incarcerated, tied to 6 murders, and he's a member of 757, one of THF's biggest rivals. You see where this is going? Almost immediately, the streets started talking. Bloggers claimed that G Ari had dropped Bayzoo's location, that she'd somehow tipped off the shooters about where he'd be that day, that the hit on Bayzoo was orchestrated by 757, and that G Ari played a role. And 2 days later, she paid the price. Retaliation. Street justice. But here's the problem. None of that is confirmed. The Chicago police haven't verified any connection between the 2 shootings. No arrests have been made in either case. Everything you just heard, it's speculation. It's the streets talking. And in Chicago, the streets have their own version of the truth. Now let me tell you about the woman who had to bury him. Tiffany, Bayzoo's wife. The woman who confirmed his death on Instagram while the rest of the world was busy sharing surveillance footage and making jokes. Think about what it takes to log onto social media and announce that your husband, the father of your children, is gone. That he bled out in a parking lot over car parts. That's the reality she woke up to on October 27th. But this wasn't Tiffany's first time planning a funeral. This wasn't even her first time losing someone to gun violence. 9 years earlier, in 2016, she buried her 14-year-old son. His name was Raheem Dameron. He was just a kid, a teenager trying to navigate the same dangerous streets his stepfather walked. And according to reports, Raheem had allegedly tried to kill someone. A week later, That person found him and shot him dead. Imagine being a mother and having to process that. Your child, your baby, gone because of a cycle of violence that never stops. It just keeps taking and taking. And now, 9 years later, she's planning another funeral. This time for her husband, the man who was supposed to protect the family. The man who survived murder charges, gun cases, and decades in the streets. The man who walked out of courtrooms with his head high. But he couldn't walk out of that auto parts yard. Tiffany didn't just lose a husband. Her children lost a father. And not just any father. They lost someone who was trying, in his own way, to be there. Bayzoo had multiple kids. He had responsibilities. He had people depending on him. And now those kids are growing up in the same city, on the same streets, watching the same cycle play out. What do you think they learned from his death? Do you think they learned to stay away from the streets? Or do you think they learned that no matter how strong you are, no matter how loyal, the streets always win? Duty Low, another OTF rapper and one of Bayzoo's closest friends, posted a tribute that hit hard. He said, "My best friend, my brother, my dog. Taught me a lot. This one hurt. Everybody knows our relationship. I got your kids for life. When I got shot, you jumped on the road, no questions." That last part is important. When Duty Low got shot, Bayzoo didn't hesitate. He was there. That's the kind of loyalty we're talking about. The kind that makes you drop everything and show up. The kind that makes you defend your brother on social media, even when the feds are building a case. The kind that gets you killed. And Duty Low promising to take care of Bayzoo's kids? That's real. That's the code. When someone falls, the family steps up. But here's the heartbreaking part. How many kids can one person take care of? How many funerals can one community attend before it breaks? Bayzoo's children are now being raised in a world where their father is a memory. A name. A legend in the streets. But legends don't pay bills. Legends don't show up to parent-teacher conferences. Legends don't tuck you in at night. Tiffany's Instagram post was brief, but it said everything. She didn't need paragraphs. She didn't need explanations. The pain was clear. And the comments section? Flooded with condolences, heart emojis, and prayers. But prayers don't bring people back. Prayers don't stop the next shooting. Prayers don't heal a mother who's buried a son and a husband before she's even 40 years old. Now let's talk about what the police found. Or more accurately, what they didn't find. When Chicago PD arrived at the scene on South St. Louis Avenue, they found Bayzoo's body, 2 injured bodyguards, and a dead puppy. They found shell casings. They found blood. They found a crime scene that told a story of an ambush. But what they didn't find? Witnesses who were willing to talk. Because in neighborhoods like Little Village, in communities where the police are seen as just another gang with badges, people don't talk. They don't cooperate. They handle things their own way. The surveillance footage was leaked almost immediately. And that's the world we live in now. Before the police can even start their investigation, the video is on Instagram, Twitter, and every drill rap blog you can think of. Thousands of people watched Bayzoo get murdered. They watched him fall. They watched his bodyguards scramble. They watched the shooters run. And they commented. They shared. They debated who did it and why. But when the detectives came knocking, silence. As of late October 2025, the Chicago Police Department announced that no suspects were in custody. No arrests had been made. The investigation was ongoing, but in a city that sees hundreds of homicides every year, Bayzoo's case was just another file on an overworked detective's desk. The reality is that most murders in Chicago go unsolved. Witnesses are scared. Evidence is hard to come by. And even when the police have a suspect, getting a conviction is nearly impossible when no one will testify. Detectives did what they could. They canvassed the area. They interviewed people who were nearby. They reviewed the surveillance footage frame by frame. They analyzed the shell casings to try to match them to other shootings. They looked into Bayzoo's known rivals, his recent social media activity, and any threats he might have received. But here's the thing. When you're as deep in the streets as Bayzoo was, the list of people who might want you dead is long. Really long. It could have been 757. It could have been 051. It could have been someone with a personal grudge. It could have been someone trying to make a name for themselves. In Chicago, motive is everywhere. Proof is nowhere. And then there's the G Ari angle. 2 days after Bayzoo's murder, she's killed. Bloggers immediately connected the dots. They said she gave up his location. They said 757 used her to set him up. And when THF found out, they retaliated. It's a clean narrative. It makes sense in the world of gang logic. But is it true? The police haven't confirmed it. No evidence has been presented. It's all speculation. Street rumors. The kind of stories that spread like wildfire but can't be proven in a courtroom. What detectives do know is that both shootings were execution style. Both victims were targeted. Both were tied to Chicago's drill rap scene. And both were connected to long-standing gang rivalries that have claimed dozens of lives over the past decade. But connecting the murders officially? That requires evidence. Witnesses. Confessions. And in Chicago, those things are rare. Detectives are still looking for leads. They're still hoping someone will come forward. They're still analyzing evidence. But realistically, unless someone talks, unless someone decides that justice is more important than the code, this case will go cold. Bayzoo will become another statistic. Another name on a long list of unsolved murders in Chicago. Another story that ends with no accountability. And that's the part that should make you angry. Not just about Bayzoo, but about the system that allows this to keep happening. A man is murdered in broad daylight on camera, with witnesses all around, and no one is held accountable. How does that happen? How does a city let that slide? The answer is complicated. It's about poverty, systemic inequality, distrust of police, fear of retaliation, and a culture that glorifies violence while offering no real alternatives. Bayzoo's family deserves answers. Tiffany deserves to know who killed her husband. His kids deserve to know who took their father. But in Chicago, closure is a luxury most families can't afford. They bury their loved ones, they mourn, and they move on because what else can they do? So here's what we're left with. A man who survived the courts but couldn't escape the code. A man who stood by his friends, even when it cost him everything. A man who made music about beating bodies and living to tell the tale. Until he couldn't anymore. The people responsible? Still out there. Still walking the same streets. Still breathing the same air. No arrests. No justice. Just another case file in a city where violence is the language and death is the punctuation. So let me ask you this. Was Bayzoo a victim of the streets he represented? Or was he a soldier who knew exactly what he signed up for? Can you really escape a life like that? Or is it always just a matter of time? And what about G Ari? If the streets are right, if she really did drop his location, was her death justice or just another murder? Where do we draw the line between loyalty and survival? And when does standing by your people become the very thing that gets you killed? Here's another question. What about Tiffany? What about the women who are left behind to pick up the pieces? How many funerals can one person endure before they break? And maybe the biggest question of all, why do we keep watching? Why do we consume this content, share these videos, follow these stories, and then act surprised when another body drops? Are we part of the problem? Are we feeding the cycle by turning trauma into entertainment? If this case got you thinking, if it made you realize how deep and dark these streets really run, hit that like button. Subscribe to One Crime at a Time, because we're not just telling stories. We're digging into the uncomfortable truths that most people look away from. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think. Was Bayzoo a product of his environment, or did he have a choice? Could Tiffany have done anything differently, or was she just caught in a storm she couldn't control? Let's talk about it. And if you found this case interesting, watch this next. Kimber Mills. Another life. Another tragedy. Another crime at a time.